on her head, there'd be no mercy. Not like before. Before, he'd been so horrified at the way he'd found her, he hadn't thought of anything except getting Addie home. He levered the shells into the chamber of the Spencer. This time he'd hunt their sorry asses down and gut them, make them pay, every single last one of them. Against the backdrop of the current tension in the air, Cole saw again the way Addie had looked at him in that Indian camp. The terror in her eyes, the shattered lightness that had been her soul. Because he hadn't been home when the attack had come 15 years ago, hadn't been able to protect her. He'd promised himself right then he'd never see that look in her eyes again. Yet here he was back on her trail, same as before, worry riding tandem with anger, in all likelihood about to face the same shattered look. Only this time, he didn't know if Addie could recover. There was only so much a body could take. And Addie had already had her fill. Hell, for that matter, so had he. God damn. It wasn't fair this should happen to her twice in one lifetime. Addie was fragile. She always had been. But her time with the Indians had left her broken. It had taken her years to rebuild her world. He'd watched her do it, every step forward anchored by a new ritual. Every ritual anchored in her worry stone. She never went anywhere without her worry stone. But she didn't have it now. Cole reached into his pocket and touched it. He'd found it lying in a pool of blood in the remnants of the battle, like a plea or a warning. He shook his head again. Before, she'd been a child, but now she was a woman grown. And there were ways a man could hurt a woman. Cole jerked his hat down as the old knot of dread in his stomach flared. He didn't want to think about that. Steering the big Palomino off the path into a small cut in the rise, he pushed back the memories and focused on the increasing tingle along his spine that forecasted the trouble that was coming. Closing his eyes, Cole traced the energy. The ability was a gift he'd been born with, and one he'd honed over the years. It had saved his life more times than he could count. The surges were coming at him from 3 directions. He frowned. They were flanking him, driving him forward like a sheep to the slaughter. He looked around. Steep hills surrounded him on either side. No way out. He had 2 choices, to go back or to ride into a trap. There was no good place to take a stand here, and there wouldn't be where they waited. But there was a chance he could find a spot between here and there. The only good news was they probably weren't aware that he knew what they were doing. That warning tingle had always been his advantage, the thing that kept him alive. That and his reflexes. He had very good reflexes. With a press of his knee, Cole urged Rage forward. The horse, sure-footed and stable, responded. Rage was always Cole's choice when he went to battle. A man needed someone steady by his side when things got hairy, which maybe explained why he'd never gotten married. Women were a liability. Sweet and sexy and satisfying to dally with, but they tended to the emotional. He had enough responsibilities. He didn't need the challenge of one more. Truth was, he was getting tired. The tingle got stronger, snaking down his spine. He looked around. And careless, if his current predicament was anything to go by. He wanted to find the Reapers, but on his terms, not theirs. Ahead, the path twisted through the rocky hillside. The trees were getting sparse. The Palomino nickered. Cole patted Rage's shoulder 3 times, the way he did when he wanted to let the animal know trouble was coming. The horse tossed his head in anticipation, and the energy rippling through his muscles spread to Cole. Cole contained it with ruthless determination. He wasn't an excitable man, but it was hard not to respond to those primitive surges, not to let his own restless need override the hard-won lesson of patience. He'd been waiting a long time for this confrontation, and he had